Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to one and all. On behalf of Mahatma Education Societies, Pillai College of Education and Research, New Panvel, it is a privilege and honor to extend a warm and hearty welcome to all the participants to the live webinar on critical thinking, tools and techniques for teachers. I am Dr. Geeta Thakur, faculty member of PCR Panvel and the host for today's session. Pillai College of Education and Research was established in the year 2007 and is affiliated to the University of Mumbai. It is approved by the National Council of Teacher Education, and the institution is NAAC accredited A grade with a CGPA of 3.31. The grade is a strong reflection of the able leadership of our principal, Dr. Sally Enos, and the efforts put in by staff and students of PCR. The college caters to B.Ed and M.Ed full-time teacher training program and is a recognized PhD center for research studies in the field of education. We at PCR constantly strive to give the best to the society through its trained teachers, as well as various community initiatives. Today, we have with us distinguished speaker, Dr. Chetan Date, heads of various institutions under the MES umbrella, and the faculty members of PCR Panvel. I welcome you all to today's session. If we look at today's session, it is an extension of the last webinar we had on transformational learning. One of the key features or an important component of transformation learning advocated by Jack Mezzaro in critical thinking. Thinking is key to change. It is a key to change our situations, environment, or circumstances. A deep meaning hides within the words of Aristotle. Thinking is the mark of an educated mind. To be able to entertain a thought without accepting it, holding to this thought, we let us all begin with the webinar. I now request our principal, Dr. Sally Enos, PCR Panvel, to set the webinar in motion.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta Thakur, first of all, for taking up the initiative and hosting this particular webinar. I thank God for the beautiful day that He has given us and giving us another opportunity to host this webinar. On behalf of Mahatma Education Society, Pillai College of Education and Research, I extend a very, very warm welcome to all. We have with us, like Dr. Geeta said, Dr. Chetan Date, an expertise in the field of critical thinking. And he has been so gracious enough to accept our invite and share his precious, valuable time today with us as a resource person for this webinar. Dr. Date, we are definitely indebted to this valuable time that you're sharing with us, and a very, very warm and hearty welcome to the webinar. Definitely, this is not possible without the support and help of our members of the management board. I take this opportunity to welcome the members of the management board attending this session. They are the guiding light for all our actions and events that we do. Welcome to all the heads of the various institutions and from the institutions outside Mahatma Education Society who have joined us in for this particular webinar. They have been a moral support in all that we have been taking initiatives in. So thank you and a big welcome too. Definitely our webinars cannot be of utility value if we don't have precious participants who are willingly have registered and attending in this particular webinar. A very, very hearty welcome to each one of you. Personally, my views, if I have to say in 2 lines, happiness and satisfaction does not come by living with problems, but by finding solutions to those problems. So today's session is surely going to enable us to think in a very critical manner in every situation and come up with a beautiful solution for a happy life. And I'm sure Dr. Chetan Date is going to initiate this particular thinking in us and also activate our own active life that we need to live in this pandemic. Thank you so much. Once again, a very, very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Geeta Thakur.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is indeed a moment of pride for us to host this live webinar for more than 500 registered participants. Such a feat is only possible with a strong backing, and I'm filled with gratitude towards our management for giving us every possible opportunity to grow as an institution. When the institution grows, we grow along with it. The session would not have been possible without the support and guidance of a dynamic duo, Dr. Vasudevan Pillai, the visionary founder, chairman, and CEO of Mahatma Education Society, and his better half, Dr. Daphne Pillai, co-founder, secretary of Mahatma Education Society. They are leaders in essence, set out to make a difference in the society. They are committed to provide holistic education based on new generation academics that creates not just powerful global career options for the students, but which empowers them to become key contributors to the community. Sir is the biggest propagator of education for all and genuinely believes that a nation better taught is a nation better empowered. With this vision, he founded the Mahatma Education Society in 1970 and transformed it into a vast educational organization spread over 5 elegant campuses across Mumbai and Navi Mumbai. The society now manages a total of 48 education institutions, providing quality education from KG to PG. It offers professional courses in the faculties of engineering, architecture, management, teacher training, arts, science, and commerce, and caters to more than 35,000 teachers, 35,000 students, with 2,000 teachers and 1,500 members of non-teaching staff. The objective of the organization is to achieve nation building through character building, which is ensured by bringing about a paradigm shift in the role of teachers from teaching to mentoring. With his relentless effort and the spirit of excellence, Sir has ignited the passion to excel among teachers and students alike. Pillai Group of Institutions has now become synonymous with excellent education. We are fortunate enough to witness a beautiful transformism of our organization as Mahatma Education Society completes its 50 years from its inception. We feel equally honored to be led by the new generation entrepreneurs, Dr. Priyam Pillai, COO, and Mr. Pranav Pillai, Deputy CEO of Mahatma Education Society. They have not only inherited vision, zeal, and enthusiasm, but they also bring in newness and change. Their modern and global outlook in the field of education has opened new avenues of growth for teachers as well as students and added a fresh dimension to the organization. The tie-up of MES with Coursera and the series of webinars by all the institutions was possible only through their support. We are privileged to see the organization reach its zenith under the able leadership of Priyam Sir and Pranav Sir. They are the new generation leaders who think critically. The famous Greek philosopher Socrates was a great proponent of critical thinking and argued that a lack of knowledge is not bad, but students must strive to make known what they don't know through critical thinking. It is a topic of great importance to all the teachers who form the backbone of the educational system of every nation on earth. It is our responsibility to nurture and mold our learners into resourceful beings, competent. It is only through thinking that we reach our destination. But thinking in the right direction, using the right tools, and for the right purpose is of great essence. Our thoughts, our actions help us realize those. I do not want to encroach into the arena of our speaker. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our dynamic guest speaker, Dr. Chetan Date, President, Quality Executive Consultant, Business Quality Solutions, LLC Tempe, Arizona. Dr. Date holds a PhD in Engineering and Executive MBA from Arizona State University. He has a BTech degree from the most reputed institution in India, IIT Kharagpur. He is a certified Six Sigma Black Belt and is a registered professional engineer in the state of Arizona. Sir's illustrious career spans over 40 years with expertise across quality assurance, Six Sigma, regulatory compliance, engineering, project management, and university level teaching. He has extensive global experience in Europe, China, Mexico, and India, and has managed multi location organizations. He enjoys transforming challenging situations by focusing on people, processes, and executing sustainable changes. Dr. Date has implemented large scale changes using disciplined change management approach and takes pride in building high performance global teams and collaborating with diverse stakeholders to achieve measurable results. His career started as an adjunct faculty at Arizona University, and later he moved into the industrial sector. But someone rightly said, once a teacher, always a teacher. He still continues with his passion for teaching as guest lecturer at the Arizona State University. It is a great pleasure to have you, sir, today with us. Welcome, and the stage is all yours, sir.
Group of educators. So as Geeta mentioned, Geeta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Good. So as Geeta mentioned, I'm an engineer. I'm a trained engineer. I'm a practicing engineer. I also have MBA, and I'm a Six Sigma black belt. Over my 40 years career, I designed jet engines, I designed civil structures, I led several research programs, I re-engineered design processes, manufacturing processes, business processes. I have managed a $350 million product line where I had to make some hard decisions and allocate investment fundings for growth projects. I've also managed large organizations spanning in 12 locations in 6 countries. The reason I'm saying this is because all these activities required critical thinking. And that is really the topic of today's discussion, that critical thinking, tools and techniques for teachers. So as I mentioned, right, I'm trained as an engineer. I'm trained to be a critical thinker, to solve problems, to understand the data, validate the data, analyze it, and make use of it. And I have been fortunate enough to have some great teachers, mentors, coaches who made this critical thinking as a habit for me. I, on my own side, trained several individuals and several teams to think critically, to solve engineering and business problems, train them to understand the data, collect the data, validate it, analyze it, and then make good decisions. So building a high performance team is to help them make their own decisions using the right tools and techniques. And that is the experience I would like to share with you, the things that work for me, right? So thanks for giving me the opportunity. So in the next one and a half hour, there are 3 points I would like to make. The first one is critical thinking is essential for success in any profession. The second one is teachers play a major role in stimulating critical thinking in their students. And the earlier the students learn it, the better it is for them. And the third one is that you can use some very simple tools to make that happen. So this discussion is for how we train students. We are all here because we know how to think critically. We know that. How do we make that happen with our students? That is really the topic of today's discussion. So I have about 25 slides, and I will take 1 hour, 15 minutes. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers. So please do ask me, and then the things I might have rushed through, I would cover in Q&A. Okay, so let's get started. So before we get into the subject, I just want to calibrate ourselves with what I mean by critical thinking. And I use the term critical thinking, analytical thinking interchangeably. For me, it's the same. And there are several definitions available, but this is the one which I like. Right? It's a structured and disciplined process that enables collection, synthesization, analysis, and interpretation of information in order to make inferences, provide explanations, solve problems, and make decisions. So critical thinking or analytical thinking, it's all about information. It's a collection, validation, analysis, and usage. And as we start focusing on the information and formulate our tools and techniques and strategies around it, we essentially drive critical thinking in our students. Right? So at this point, I want to share a video with you. So this is about a comic strip called Dilbert. It is created by Scott Adams. You probably have seen this comic strip in a newspaper. It comes in several newspapers. It is about engineering and business norms and business practices, US business practices. This particular clip is about baby Dilbert. His mother takes him to a pediatrician because she's worried about Dilbert. So let's hear this.
I'm worried about little Dilbert. He's not like other kids.
What do you mean?
Yesterday, I left him alone for a minute, and he disassembled the TV, our clock, and the stereo.
That's perfectly normal. Kids take things apart.
Oh, the part that worries me is he used the components to build a ham radio set.
Oh dear.
Is that bad?
Normally I'd want to run an EEG on him, but the machine isn't working. It's worse than I feared.
What is it?
I'm afraid your son has the knack.
The knack?
The knack. It's a rare condition characterized by an extreme intuition about all things mechanical and electrical and utter social ineptitude.
Can he lead a normal life?
No. He'll be an engineer.
No!
There. Don't blame yourself.
Will it go away over time?
It might, but pray it doesn't. If an engineer loses the knack, the results can be devastating.
And in further news,
So contrary to common belief, engineers are not born with the knack. Most of us are trained, and they're trained by teachers like you. Okay, so that's really the purpose of it. So let's talk about thinking and the transformation to critical thinking. You know this famous quote by Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Everybody thinks, right? It comes naturally. All human beings do that. But this common thinking, it's emotional, it's ad hoc. It's based on personal experiences, biases, prejudices. It's our own beliefs. And it's also susceptible to human irrationality. Critical thinking, on the other hand, is deliberate. It's structured. It's disciplined. It's self-guided. It challenges the status quo. It explores motives and reasons. It recognizes blind spots that we have. Right? And this transformation from ordinary thinking to critical thinking can be done by individuals, by self-awareness, or it could be done by teachers. In fact, teachers can help this transformation very effectively. They can teach, they can coach, they can influence, they can guide, they can direct, and they can move people from ad hoc thinking to a deliberate critical thinking. Right? So I want to give you another quote here. Is right. It's Socratic quote. He said this before he was given a poison for blasphemy and corrupting young people's minds by teaching them how to think. The unexamined life is not worth living. Now, I'm not going that far at all, okay? Because nobody thinks critically all the time. But knowing when to shift from our natural thinking to a critical thinking is quite important. And when we do that, we generally tend to live a happy life. Now, benefits of critical thinking. I don't think I want to go through this in any more detail, because you wouldn't have been here if you didn't think critical thinking was beneficial. Right? All I can say is the individuals who know how to think critically and analytically live a relatively happy life. So when I talk about critical thinking, I talk about the process, right? And remember, I talked about data. It's all about information. It's all about data. It's the collection of data, validation of the data, and the decision and uses. And the reason I put decision and uses Sage right here is because it's very easy to get wrapped around the axle and spend time on collection and validation and dig deeper into it without realizing when to stop and when to make decisions. The reason we teach engineers and business people and other professionals to think critically is to make good decisions. And if there is an analysis paralysis in the first two stages, then that critical thinking cannot be converted into a use. So these three stages are quite important. And when we talk about how do we teach students to think critically. Okay. So the whole purpose of this critical thinking is to uncover that is not so obvious. And I like to give this iceberg example. It's only small portion of the iceberg is above the water. That is what the students see, right? They look at that, they think quickly, and give you the first answer. Our job as a teachers, coaches, mentors is to help them see entire iceberg. And how do we make that? We teach them to focus on causes, to focus on the reasons, to focus on effects or implications, to understand motives and the motivations, to look for the cost and benefits or the pros and cons or the risk. So where do you do this? I mean, you can do in every teaching moment. You can do that on the playground. You can do it in a classroom. You can do it on a one-on-one discussion. You can do it on formal debates or pre-arranged debates in the class. You can do that while grading class assignments or during the discussions on the current topics or the discussion of an important concept. And this can be done by either one-on-one basis, as I mentioned, or establishing getting collective input, or using Six Sigma lean tools, or probing questioning. And this is where I want to stress that the best tools that teachers or the coaches or the mentors have is asking questions, right? We simply have to ask questions and steer them to answers. Let, don't give them the answer. I've done that many times with my teams. The students realize your style of questioning, and the next time they will come with well-prepared, well-researched answers. Okay. So the first time in my life I experienced such kind of a questioning is when we had discussions with my father. The children used to talk a lot of things with my father. The discussion could very well be the movie we saw or the novel we read, or talking about some historical figure or historical fact, or it could even be editorial of that day. And my father was a lawyer by education and accountant by profession. And he would ask questions like who, what, why not, so what if it had happened? And then he would play devil's advocate sometimes and would argue, or he would give us a suggestions like, why don't you read such and such article or such and such book, or why don't you find out what so and so is talking about this event. I don't think we realized that time that our father was teaching us to think for ourselves. I don't even think he thought that what he was doing. That was just his style. But I realized the power of this questioning when I started mentoring Six Sigma teams or facilitating Kaizen events. So asking right questions, asking probing questions, and Socratic questioning is a great tool. It's a very strong way of helping students think critically, think analytically. Is somebody asking a question? Okay. So Geeta was asking what are the examples where you could do these kind of things. So here are some examples, right? You could discuss this COVID-19 spread and prevention, or annual monsoon floods in Bombay. Why not? What could be done? Or global warming causes, effect, preventions. A free market versus controlled market. Democracy versus benevolent dictatorship. Or Boeing 737 MAX crash. I mean, in take any controversial subject, and you can start helping students think critically. But it really doesn't have to be such heavy subjects. It could be a day-to-day activities like a quality of cafeteria food, or remote learning challenges, or how do you eliminate student tardiness, or today's editorial, or yesterday's event, right? So, but the idea is that there are 2-3 different opinions, and that topic could be used to do, you use it as a tool or a vehicle to dive critical thinking. And as a teacher, sometimes you just have to take a broader look, put a spotlight on a much bigger picture, or you can take proverbial microscope and dig deeper, like a inch wide, mile deep kind of an approach. Either approach is okay. It depends upon the situation. But the idea is that focus on the process, and the tools will be coming naturally. Right? So let's talk about the process, the first stage, the data collection or the information collection. Now, this is where you can ask probing questions, right? Ask questions why not, how, so what, right? Look for the thought process behind any response. don't stop at the first answer. At this point, you can also explore alternate scenarios. What if? So this is where 5 why or cost chain or fishbone analysis comes into picture. Other technique is group input, right? But when you do that in a classroom setting or a group setting, make sure that you have 100% participation. Make sure everybody in the group provides input in the data. Right? You seek out answers, you call on students. Like my experience with China or Mexico, the students are, in this case, engineers, don't really speak up in the group settings. So I used to call out on everybody by name to participate. This is where you want to make sure that you encourage quiet type of students to speak up and make sure that the over talkative people don't dominate the discussion. Right? You want to discuss the fringe responses, the outliers. You want to understand the thought process behind those responses. They are to be discussed a little bit more and should not be dismissed. So this is where the brainstorming or nominal group technique comes handy. The next stage. The next stage is a data validation. In my view, this is probably the most important stage, because this challenges the basic beliefs and assumptions. It's very uncomfortable when your assumptions are being questioned. Your basis is questioned. Your beliefs are questioned. This sometimes forces them to accept uncomfortable situation. It forces them to see the other side of the coin. It forces them to listen to different opinions than their own, right? So data validation is kind of an important piece. What you want to do here is to encourage the validation of sources and the validation of the data itself, right? How reliable these sources are, right? So when you do that, you got to find out what are the alternate viewpoints. Who else has done this? What are they saying, right? Then look for the motives. The motives can give you some idea about the truthfulness or trustworthiness of the source. Right? Look for the beneficiaries. Who benefits? Ask for them, who benefits from this? Who benefits from this argument? What are the benefits? And that would give you, if the data is to be used or not. All you're doing here is that validating if the data is truthful, that could be used to make certain decisions. So you encourage students to do the research. Go to the library, do the web research, ask for references, ask for the names, dates, sources. Encourage specificity and quantification instead of generalization. So if they say big or large, ask them, what's the weight? What's the size? How does it compare to the average? So when they say all the time, most of the time, ask them what's the percentage of the time. So when you ask for specific information or ask for quantifying the data, that forces them to go back to the source and check the specifics of it, right? That drives the validation of the source as well as the data. When you ask them to triangulate the information, who else has said it? What is the other counterpoint on it? that forces them to look at it, that I can't just take one data source and base my entire analysis on that, right? Because if that data source is incorrect, my analysis is incorrect, and therefore my decisions will be bad. So make sure that they recognize that this is quite important. Another piece you want to make sure that they differentiate between a fact and an opinion and belief or hypothesis. Right? What's a hypothesis and what's a proven theory? Let's ask them that. When they say something, ask them, is this your hypothesis? Or is it somebody has proven the theory? Is this, you believe this is what is happening? And if you believe, is it true? What if it is not true? So they need to differentiate that piece, right? So learn to question assumptions and their truthfulness. Challenge the status quo. Just because we have accepted something as a gospel truth doesn't make it a gospel truth. And that is very uncomfortable situation for both teachers as well as students. But that is a critical element in critical thinking, is the validation of the data and differentiating from fact versus opinion, right? And then you go to do the decision making. Now this is where I changed critical thinking and put a pragmatic engineer hat here. That in these first two stages, when you start asking questions, people go dig deeper, particularly the new students or novices. They think it's so much that they can't get to good enough answer. So our job is to teach them what is good enough, right? Teach them to identify. So ask so what questions? How is it applicable? Is it that critical? Which one is more important? Is it important than the other thing that you talked about? But what you want to do is make sure that they don't lose sight of the original question or the objective of the investigation, right? So knowing when to stop is quite important. A simple way of doing is put a time limit. You got to have a decision done at certain period. Good, bad, otherwise, if you think it's not right, tell them why it is not right, put some probability around it, but make a decision from the available data. And the stuff you don't know it, put what you don't know it. Another piece you want to do, and this is particularly important when you have got multiple options or multiple solutions, is to teach them to prioritize the options and solutions. Focus on the benefits versus efforts, benefits versus resources. Right? Teach them phased approach. Ask them, which one will you do first? Which one will you do second? Can you split the whole task into phase 1, complete that, then phase 2, complete that, and phase 3, complete that. So that way, they don't get overwhelmed with the whole set of options. And they need to recognize that the scarcity of resources and time prevents us from doing everything that we want to do. And therefore, we got to pick 1 or 2 or 3 things and either fix them or solve them or go after them or do that. Right? So the question is that which one are those that you're going to pick? So in this case, 80-20 principle or Pareto charting and prioritization matrix comes very handy. Okay. So next I want to touch are the tools. Like in last 3 charts, I talked about some tools: brainstorming, Socratic questioning, 5 why analysis, cause-effect analysis, fishbone analysis, 80-20 rule or Pareto principle, and prioritization method. Right? These are common engineering Six Sigma tools. A lot of information is available on the internet. The books are written on it, and I have given some references for each one of them at the end. Right? And I know the time is critical. I don't think we can do justice in teaching these tools, but all I'm going to do is introduce. And if you still have any questions, please do ask. And that particular aspect that I might have missed, we will go over it in the Q&A session. Okay. So the first tool is brainstorming. You probably have used it, not used it, but this is a simple technique of generating ideas, lots of ideas in a very short period. It is generally a team activity led by a facilitator, which I would say it's you. And the facilitator has 3-4 jobs. The first one is to establish a well-defined and understood topic. And then give a clear objective for the brainstorming, what we want to be accomplished, when we want it to be done. Right? And then the big one is to maintain order and discipline. Right? So to make that happen, here are some kind of a guidelines I want to give you. There got to be 100% participation in the group, right? So you can call on students. One technique that we use commonly is to go around a circle, ask everyone. Everyone has to speak and give the idea. And you go around 2-3 rounds of it, and then one by one people run out of ideas. Then they start saying pass, and then everybody else says pass. That's when the session stops. What you're focusing here is quantity of ideas, not necessarily quality, because you are going to generate everything. Some will be in completely left field, others will be in right field, but you want to get everything, right? That means you are not going to criticize any idea that is being spoken. That's a big thing in brainstorming. Other thing is that you don't work ideas as you are generating them, but you capture them, you record them. Preferably you record them on a flip chart or a big wall on the staircase. Write all these ideas. And when you do that in the group setting of calling people build on each other's thoughts and they generate more ideas. Right? Write it down all. And before consolidating, take a break. Now, this particular session lasts anywhere from 10-15 minutes to 30-minute stops. Right? Then you come back, you look at it, the repeat ideas are clustered together, put some logical time, and then do whatever you need to do with that information. Nominal group technique is a little bit more sophisticated than this vocal brainstorming. What essentially you do is give people 5 minutes, 10 minutes time and ask them to generate ideas. On the yellow stick is you put together on the wall some logical subgroups, and people will go and put the stickies as you can see on the top picture. And then you take some time to consolidate them. The repeat ideas are clustered together and then go about doing it. So nominal group technique or just standard brainstorming, the idea is the same. Nominal group technique takes 2 to 3 hours to complete it, but it is more robust. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next one is Socratic questioning. It's really a probing questioning, right? So This bears the name of Socrates because he developed a method of teaching students by asking them questions. And he would ask in a very structured manner. So this is the method that helps students to go beneath the surface of what is being discussed. It probes into the complexities of one or more fundamental ideas. Right. So this is led by a person who does nothing but ask questions. It is systemic and disciplined. It is not free for all. You don't let everybody jump in. You control the discussion. You steer the discussion. Right? You direct the discussion the way you ask questions. If people start straying outside the topic, you bring them back by asking right questions. So there are 6 types of questions people have put together, right? So these 6 types of questions, that 2 are really about clarification. One is questions about questions, that is the topic you're talking about. Why am I asking this question? What's the purpose of doing this? Why are you doing this research? That's questions about the question. And the second one is questions for clarification. When you get the response, when it is not clear, you are going to ask for clarification. Okay. And the other 2 kinds are the inputs that go in any analysis. The one is the basic assumptions and the beliefs. You're going to probe those. The truthfulness, the validity, and so on and so forth. And the other ones are the viewpoints, the perspectives, and the sources of information that comes inside that is going to help you do the analysis. The 5th kind is, of course, talking about the method used, the reasons, the evidence, right? Why certain assumptions were used, what kind of a method you have used, how you have done this, what kind of analysis it is. And the 6th is the output of the whole analysis, the implications and the consequences. And what would happen if some of your assumptions are changed? What happens if certain reasons are not valid? How would that change your outcome? So these kind of questions are called Socratic questioning, because that's what the method he devised. And what you do generally is it's develop a standard bank of questions. So when we talk about accidents or failures, or when we go through a design reviews, or when we investigate or review investment projects, you develop standard questions. It's more like a checklist kind of a thing. You start with your mental things, and what I've found very helpful is essentially develop the list, and you just go number 1 to number 20. Start asking questions, and let them come up with the answers. Eventually, they realize what kind of questions are coming. So the next time, or the second time, or the third time, they will come up with all the answers when they present the project with you. So that is kind of a power of such questions. Okay. So let me share another video with you on the Socratic method. I particularly like this one. It's a short clip, and it kind of captures how it is done.
Hi, I'm Alex for Teach Like This, and this is the Socratic Method. The way the Socratic Method was developed comes with this fun little anecdote. One day, the man goes to the Oracle of Delphi and asks, who's the wisest man in Greece? The Oracle says, Socrates. When Socrates found out, he was a little surprised. In fact, he thought it was a paradox. Wouldn't you have to be wiser than me in order to know how wise I am, in order to tell me that I'm the wisest? And thus began Socratic questioning. Another strong component of the Socratic method is any child that discovers the question why. It's time for bed. Why? Because you need enough sleep for tomorrow. Why? Because otherwise you're going to be tired. Why? Okay, because I said so. The Socratic method is really valuable in places where students are learning ethics. This might be in a civics class, or a law class, or a history class, or just as a teachable moment as kids are playing on the playground. The primary goal of this method is not to try to have students answer unanswerable questions. It's to have them think critically about difficult issues. In order to use the Socratic method, follow these steps. Pick a controversial topic and provide questions for students, or have them develop their own questions, or develop questions as a class. The teacher is going to start out leading the discussion. However, as the year goes on, it'd be wonderful for students to start taking on the leadership role. After starting the initial open discussion, the leader's role has these following things. Keep the topic focused and don't allow tangents. Coax reluctant participants into the discussion and limit the contributions for dominating students. Force students to elaborate and clarify their contributions. As the discussion continues, at some point it's going to get the leader's responsibility is to clarify, synthesize, and restate earlier opinions. The participants share in the responsibility of the Socratic discussion also. They must think and speak persuasively and use the discussion to support their opinion. That requires them to actively listen to the discussion in order to use it for support later. Participants must demonstrate respect for different thoughts or ideas, and it's important they don't interrupt each other. The Socratic method is also used in law schools, but with a little bit of a twist. In this case, the professor calls on a student at random and puts that student on the hot seat. The student then has to answer the question and all subsequent questions that the professor asks. The professor then takes the role of devil's advocate and forces the student to defend his or her opinion as the professor keeps on coming up with refuting arguments. One hallmark of a Socratic question is there's no one right answer. As a recap, the Socratic method is a strategy that challenges students' assumptions and causes them to think critically of difficult issues. In order to do it in your classroom, start with a good open-ended question, ask follow-up questions, and then summarize everything together at the end with different thoughts and new learnings. That's all for this video. If you have additional questions, you can connect with me on Twitter or by email or by commenting down below. And subscribe for weekly strategies in your newsfeed. I'm Alex, and that's Teach Like This.
Right. So in this Socratic questioning, right, our job is to simply ask questions and let students find their own answers. Let them have their own aha moment, right? And another big thing is to keep them on the topic. Don't let them stray away too far from the original topic, right? So let's go to the next one. This is called 5 why analysis. And this is essentially one of the Socratic questioning method. It really probes deeper by asking why question 5 times. It develops cause chain, which we use that quite commonly when we have an event and we want to find out how this event has happened so that we can fix it. And the event could be as simple as product is non-conforming, or it could be an accident that's it had happened. But you want to develop the cause chain. So here is a simple one. The event is that I didn't get to the work on time. Why didn't I get to the work on time? The car wouldn't start. Why wouldn't the car start? Because the battery was dead. Why was the battery dead? Because the dome light in the car was on all night. Why was the light on? Because children played in the car, leaving the door ajar. Why did children play in the car? So you get the point, right? You can keep on asking why question to figure out what really happened so that you can go and fix it, or you can take control of it. Now, we say 5 why, but it doesn't have to be only 5, right? It could be more than that. We just use 5 why in this particular root cause analysis, but it doesn't have to be that way. You go deeper to find out the contributing causes and root causes, just so that you can fix it, right? But the main point here is not the 5 why or 8 whys or 9 why. The main point is it's not only 1 why or 2 why. You got to go deeper than that. That's why it's a fiber. Another point that I want to make here is that your cause chain is not linear, as you can see. In fact, it is rarely linear. You got multiple branches, and that's okay, because some of them you could find some preventive measure and that could curtail it. So explore all the branches that you can, and then figure it out which one are more relevant, which one are not. Right? So let me show you another video clip here. I like that music. There is a Hindi song of that music. So this is how it happened, right? I just want to leave you, create this event chain for you. Somebody threw the can and it went into road debris. The car hit the debris, can got tossed, hit somebody. That guy thought the guy behind him hit the can, so they started a fight. In the process, the can was thrown back again on the road. The motorcycle hit the can got tossed and hit the window got broken. The man inside the house got really angry. He saw somebody threw the can, he picked up the can, threw. The can hit a flower pot that was sitting on the wall. Wall was very close to the road. Flower pot went on this man's head. And the scooter guy then lost the control of the scooter, fell on the stack of the bicycles. Bicycle hit the ladder, and the guy was on the ladder, the painter, he fell down. That is kind of a event chain. This is how it happened. But if you were to find out why did the painter fall from his ladder, then you will develop a cause chain like that by asking why questions. And remember, it is not 5 whys, it's a bunch of whys, right? So why did the painter fall from a ladder? The bicycle hit the ladder. Ladder was not stable. Ladder was not secure. Why wasn't ladder stable? Ladder wasn't secure on the wall. That's great. But still, bicycle hit the ladder. Right? Why did bicycle hit the ladder? Oh, bicycle was not secured. Why? There was no bicycle stand. Or the scooter hit bicycle on the stack. Why the scooter lost his control? The flower pot hit the rider. Why did it do that? Oh, the old man threw the can. But by the way, the flower pot was also kept on the wall near the road, and it was unstable. Why did old man threw the can? Because can hit the window. The man was angry. Why was he angry? Oh, the kids in the neighborhood were harassing him. I'm just making this one up, okay? I just know the man was angry. I don't know why he was angry. Can hit the window. Why? Bicycle hit the can. Why did that happen? Because man threw the can in the street. Why did he do that? The car ran over the debris. All right. because someone threw the can in the street debris. So you can build this cost chain by asking these questions, right? In this case, since you already know the event chain, you can build it pretty quickly with, of course, branches out there. And in most cases, as a teacher, you know underlying events. So you can steer the team to make it happen. But what if you don't know it? Like there is a failure, there is an accident, or there's some event that you don't know how it happened. Then the team sits down and starts exploring these side branches, and eventually they realize which one is relevant, which one is not, based upon that. So sometimes what you do is you walk the process, if it is a manufacturing, or if it is, or you talk to people who have seen the event to go and see which one is more relevant. Now, in this case, yes, if we had secured the ladder wall, tied the ladder to the wall, he would not have fallen, no matter whether the bicycle would hit the ladder or not. Similarly, if there was a bicycle stand and bicycles were tied to the stand, bicycle would not have fallen like a domino. So these side branches will give you some reason and some way of preventing the event, which was the fall of Painter, right? No matter what happened here. Now, of course, you can say that you can teach people not to throw debris, but that's kind of some places you can't do that, right? But you could take preventive action somewhere in area so that no matter what happens in your cost chain, you can prevent the event from happening, right? Same thing about a flower pot. Why would anybody will put a loose flower pot on a wall that is close to road? That's a hazard, right? So that's kind of a thought process you go through by asking questions and analyzing this kind of a cost chain. Another tool I want to share with you is this fishbone diagram or Ishikawa diagram. This tool got the name Ishikawa diagram. It's from Professor Ishikawa of Tokyo University, who used it first time, or later many times, to consolidate the data. The data typically is a bunch of inputs resulting in one output, or bunch of causes resulting in one effect. It establishes a relationship and the dependencies, right? But more importantly, it organizes in some logical logical subgroup. And therefore, it's a cause-effect analysis, right? It's also called fishbone because it looks like a fish skeleton, where head of the fish is the effect or output, and the causes go into the spine of the fish skeleton. Right? So you get all this information and you put them in some logical subgroup, as I mentioned. The common logical subgroups that we use in Six Sigma are fondly known as 6Ms. It's a man, material, method, machinery, measurement system, and Mother Nature. Right? So anything that is related to people, you put it under man. Anything related to environment or uncontrollable situation, you put it under Mother Nature, like earthquake or vibrations from the nearby machine. So you kind of put here. And then you go about finding which one are relevant. So the way this would be built is that you would do a brainstorming session to find out cause effects. Then we'll go out and investigate it, maybe do the Pareto analysis, go on the floor to find out which one has actually happened. So if you are looking at out of specification product, this is a manufacturing example, that products are coming out of spec, and these will be the causes of it. So you'll go and find out which one are there. And in this case, the 3 causes will be there, and you go and fix it, right? So it's not just one tool, the bunch of tools get extended. The power of this tool, though, is putting it in visual format so that everybody can see it and then find out what is important, what is not. All right. Now, I talked about this 5 M's or 6 M's, but it doesn't have to be like that. Depending upon your situation, it could be different logical subgroups. It could be governance. It could be policies. It could be procedures. It could be training. So anything that is appropriate for a problem, you can put them in those logical subgroups. Right? Some will work, some will not. But the idea there is you have got 3 to 6 subgroups. You don't want to make more than 6, 7. And then you can focus on that area and then go about solving the problem. Right? So in this particular example, the engineers in this group will notice that these are common causes for out of specification in the machinery. So you will keep these kind of charts handy, right? And anytime you learn something new, you add to it, and it essentially increases the collective know-how of a company or a group. That is another benefit of such diagram. So next time when you will do root cause analysis, you won't start from ground zero and brainstorming. You'll pick this chart and say, hey, is this relevant? Is it not relevant? And you will go about doing it. Okay. The next 2 tools that I'm going to talk about are about decision making, right? Prioritizing. So 80-20 principle, which is also called Pareto rule. It got the name Pareto rule. This principle was stated by quality guru Dr. James Duran, and he named this rule after Italian economist Wilfredo Pareto. And Professor Pareto observed this principle. And this is an empirical principle, what essentially distinguishes between vital few and trivial many. So what this rule said in a simplistic manner, that 20% of input drives 80% of output. Right? So the small amount of input drives a large amount of output. And this is based on empirical observations in many fields. And it's applicable to many situations. So you can say 20% of efforts result in 80% of results, or 20% of causes gives you 80% of effects, or 20% of customers are bringing in 80% of revenue, or 20% of my products bring in 80% of profits for my company, or 20% of mistakes drive my 80% of quality costs, or 20% of people in this world earn 80% of world's income. Right? So this is a principle that is widely applicable. The importance is that if you embed it in your thinking process, that there are vital few that drive large chunk of output, then you will train yourself in focusing on those vital few, and always will look for what are those vital few. So whenever we say, is it relevant? It's relevant related to what is the output. Okay. So let me kind of give you an example of it, which is really a quantitative example. We call it Pareto chart. It's nothing more than a bar chart where categories are arranged in an order of frequency, starting with the most. So I'll give you two examples here, okay? One is related to the customer complaints over the period of 1 year or so, and the causes of those complaints. And you got a bunch of causes. We see the last one, other, includes about 5-6 causes with very low frequency. Here, 3 causes: missing labels, torn labels, and missing paperwork, result in 77% of complaints. So if I could fix those, I would fix a bunch of my customer complaints. So essentially about 18-19% of causes are driving by 77% of complaints. The bottom chart, it's from world GDP data. It's old chart, 1889 data, and it shows the income level, which is really a gross domestic product of quintile of population: the top quintile, second quintile, third quintile, fourth quintile, and bottom quintile. So what I'm seeing here is that the top 20% on 82.7% of income, whereas the bottom 20% on only 1.4% of world's income. So, I mean, you can build this chart with any spreadsheet. I've used Excel spreadsheet. You can put another second line of to get the easy view. This is a visual representation of the data that you all. So what would you take this? You take this to talk about the next one. It's called prioritization matrix, and this is important because when one has multiple choices or many options, how would you prioritize? Right? So in this saying, you rank your options. You rank them on 2 dimensions. In this very, and these rankings could be qualitatively established by collective know-how, or you can use the Pareto that I just showed you. The 2 dimensions could be benefits versus efforts, or benefits versus resource needed, or benefits versus disadvantages, or needs versus urgency, or reward versus risk, or investment dollars versus rate of return. Right? And based on these 2 dimensions, you figure out which one you want to do the most. So I will just show you a chart out here. On x-axis are efforts, the low efforts and the high efforts, and y-axis are the benefits. And here I got a bunch of choices that I have. Just assume that I have put in every quadrant. So on the left top, what you see is high benefits and low efforts. I call that a Nike quadrant. Just do it. Right? On the extreme opposite, you have got high efforts and low benefits. I probably will do them last or won't even do it. And in the yellow area is where priority number 2, where you will think it through how you're going to do it. So that's kind of a way of using this chart. Now it doesn't have to be 2x2 matrix. It could be 3x3 or 5x5. I've used 5x5 matrix many times. It just kind of gives you a little bit more granularity on phased approach on executing any kind of a project. Okay. So let me give you an example. Remember that example I showed you before about causes for customer complaints? Right. So here I picked up and said anything that is about 20 complaints is a high benefit, anything less than that is a low benefit. It's kind of an arbitrary pick at this point. So that means I got these 4 causes that would result in 81% of complaints, right? Missing labels, torn labels, paperwork, missing caps, and then a bunch of other causes. I also know from some other analysis what effort it would take to fix these causes, right? So I put all of these causes and projects associated with it into this 2x2 matrix, efforts versus benefits. So on the green side, I got a missing labels and missing caps. The benefits are quite high, and I think it is a very simple way of fixing it. The guy who's producing the product at the end, we give him a checklist. All he's going to look at, does the part have labels? Do they have caps? It's very easy. Just go do it. Then we also saw that open bags and incorrect part. I mean, there is not much benefit here, but my efforts are quite low. In fact, the guy who is going to do this, I will just add 2 more checklists and he can do it. Not much effort is needed. We'll just fix that one too. On this quadrant, high benefits and high efforts, like paperwork, like missing paperwork, incorrect paperwork, or torn labels. I don't know where this is happening and where else I need to go and fix it. So I will take some time to figure this one out. But since the benefits are quite high, I will do that as a priority 2 activity. And then I got a bunch of causes like foreign object, no fault found, failed test, damage test. These are, it will take me a significant amount of time to fix it, but I don't have much benefit at all. So I will put them on the last priority. So this is how you would use a prioritization metric to solve the actions piece. So what you have done here is you looked at your customer complaints. You did your brainstorming to find out all potential causes, right? And then did your data analysis and data collection to find out how many of these causes resulted into these complaints. And then you came here and figured it out. What will it take for you to fix it? High effort, low effort. At this point, it's simply qualitative. You haven't done really any more than the qualitative assessment. You put this in the matrix and said, okay, I'm going to focus on these 6 things. First thing is green, then other 4. And in that paperwork piece, then I will go through and do my fishbone chart. What is it that causes that paperwork to be incorrect? And then go and walk the process and figure it out where these missing paperworks are. And then we'll do this. So this is how we pulled all these tools together to make a decision on how to fix a problem. And it doesn't matter whether it is an administrative process, engineering process, business process. The methodology is still the same. Collect the data, validate the data, analyze the data, sort it out, and then make use to make a decision. Right? I don't know how we are doing on the time. I think we still have some time, right? Good. So these decisions get really complicated when it is not a simple 2-dimensional metric, right? It could be 3 dimensions. For example, there's benefits versus resources versus adverse effects. For example, the actions to prevent COVID spread. There are some very simple ones, but there are some ones you can really prevent COVID by, say, shutting down all activities where 3 or more people gather together. That means factories are closed, bazaars are closed, travel is closed. But that would create so much adverse effect in people's misery that you want to go and do it. So you got now 3 dimensions to look at. Another one is kind of an investment versus return versus probability of success. Right? So it could be the selection of investment projects. And that's kind of an example I've done on the cube. Here you got investment requirements, the return, and the probability of success on the vertical axis, right? And it's a simple 2 by 2 by 2 cube. On the left top side, right top side, you've got a high return, low investment, high probability of success. These are the projects I will take first. Right? And on the bottom, high investment, low return, low probability of success. It's no brainer, I won't do it. So let's say I got only $20 million to invest and my team comes up with 100 ideas. I will put all those 100 ideas on these 3 dimensions on this cube and start looking at it. It's easy, this and the green, but the other ones will take a little bit of time to understand, right? For example, look at this one where the probability of success is high, the rate of return is high, investment requirement is high too. So I might consider it, but I will bump up against affordability. I won't have money more than $20 million to figure this one out. On the other hand, you got this yellow thing where investment is low, return is very high, but probability of success is low. I would call that as a moonshot. But I will take a chance, put some checks and balances there, put some risk mitigation actions, and put some investment there to see if I really can get a very high return here. So that is how one would use data to make the call. Okay? I think I'm reaching at the end of this discussion. So far what we said is we talked about what is critical thinking. We talked about why it is essential. We talked about the process of critical thinking, and we briefly discussed 6 tools. There are many more tools, but it's the 6 tools we discussed, right? So before I open for questions, let me leave you with these 3 thoughts. Critical thinking is essential for personal success. Teachers play a major role in developing students' critical thinking abilities. And critical thinking can be taught using some simple tools and techniques. Right? And the most effective tool that you can use is probing questions. Ask them in a structured manner, and that probably will be the most important tool that you would have at your disposal, and you can use it anytime. So what you need to do is teach students to find the dots and then help them connect the dots. Okay. Thank you very much. And any questions? Hey, Geeta, how do we open it for questions?
Yes, sir. I will now request Bhavna ma'am if you could just stop sharing the screen, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. We will ask Bhavna ma'am to take over the question and answer session. Bhavna ma'am, are there any questions?
Yes. There are a few questions. First of all, sir, thank you very much. It was a very informative session, and the YouTube chat is all filled up with all praises. We do have a few questions. Sir, Ms. Jyotsna Sudhakar wants to know, how do we redesign strategies to inculcate critical thinking in a heterogeneous group of students in a classroom?
What was the second part of it?
How do we redesign strategies to inculcate critical thinking in a heterogeneous group of students in a classroom?
I think I think heterogeneous group of students in classroom is a great asset for any strategy development. And when I talk about heterogeneous group, it's not just the physical conditions, but it is bringing in different viewpoints, right? So you want to pull information, their experiences, and I don't know what kind of a strategy you are going to build, but assume that you want to develop a product marketing strategy, right? And you have got a diverse group of people with different age group, different demographics, different language, different regions. They can bring in information, their experiences in bringing in the data of what they believe the marketing would look like for your product, whether it will work or not. And that would be your basis in say, and I'm giving another example is you will form your focus group or the target customer audience based upon that. But the idea is that use your diversity of the group to pull in diverse opinions that would help develop the strategy. Otherwise, what you get, if you have got a one unified group following only the leader and you don't get any uh, diverse opinions, what you end up with is a group think. And you want to avoid that. So you're lucky to have a diverse group to give you diverse opinions. Is that, am I answering your question?
Yes, I suppose yes, sir. I think she must be satisfied with this answer. Can we move on to the next?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Dr. Asma Sheikh wants to know how to develop critical thinking for language comprehension.
Wow. Now, language comprehension is, again, you want to understand is, now I'm an engineer, right? I'm not a linguistic thing. But when you talk about a comprehension in, say, going into the Mandarin area, when I went to China, or when I go to Mexico, where there would be Spanish, to get that comprehension, you start asking questions on similarity and the differences, right? And you ask these questions, what does that mean? And does this mean the same way? So I'll give you an example is in Mandarin, Pu is a river, and Dong, it's east, Shi is west. So Pu Dong becomes east of the river, Pu Shi is the west of the river. And when you take these words and use as in a different scenario, like Xi'an, there is pride, and is a pride of Shi, which is east, right? So you ask people, does this word mean the same? And again, you're asking the questions, right? That look at this word, and if it means something here, would that mean the same there, or is there a slight difference in the words? So that's where the foreign language comprehension would come in. Again, asking questions. Has anybody else has ideas on this one? Any linguist in this group?
Sir, I think you've taken it, you explained it very well with the examples, and definitely for comprehending foreign languages, but then we could also apply it in our classroom situations as you gave examples. That would be really fine.
Okay.
Okay. We have one more question where Ms. Bharti Tandon is requesting you to give one more example for the 80-20 rule specifically, probably if possible in the teaching learning process.
So you probably know this, right? In your class, there are only a handful of students who comprehend in one shot. And you call them as a bright student, right? And your effort is you spend more effort on the remaining students, whereas you spend very little effort on these handful of students where they pick up most of what you would like to teach them, right? And you call them as a bright student, but essentially that's your 20%, which is taking all the information that you are giving and making use of it, whereas the 80% is trivial many. On the other hand, these smart students spend only probably small amount of efforts to grasp the concept, whereas other students don't do that. Right? In your school, you probably will notice, or rather any factory, that 20% of teachers are a lot more effective than everybody else. So these 80-20 rules are the critical few and trivial many is applicable in almost everywhere. Does it make sense?
Can I add in over here?
Sure, please do.
Sir, like you said, I don't know whether it's correct, but like you said, there are around, there are around 20% of students in the classroom are such that you require less effort. They grasp the knowledge very fast.
That's
So
right.
this the technique can be helpful to the teachers to identify which strategies can be useful for a larger section of the classroom. So for example, if you're using a particular strategy and it is only benefiting a small section, you can think over the strategy and you can change the strategy and then check whether it is more number of students are benefiting it from the strategy. So this can be used for choosing the correct strategy for the topic in the classroom. Like we all know, all teachers know that all strategies are not useful for all the contents, and they are not useful for all the type of students also, and they cannot be used in every situation. So the strategy can be useful for deciding upon what strategy to choose, which topic we can use that strategy, and under what circumstances it can be used.
Very, very good. Very good. You probably
Thank you,
also
sir.
probably notice that every student is not the same in the same subject, right? So you could change the strategies from analytical versus descriptive subjects.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else has thoughts on it? How would you use that 80-20 rule in classrooms?
We have a number of participants in the chat room. If they would like to contribute,
Oh, okay,
they can unmute themselves and contribute. Or you can just write it in the chat.
Please do. I can't see the chat in here.
Yeah, I think sir's answer to that question also answered another question. Selina ma'am says, how could you draw out shy and introvert students during discussions? And she says something that sir just explained is answering a question. That is what she's put up in the chat. So, sir, any other ways that we could draw out shy and introvert students during discussions?
There are two, three ways I have seen. Okay, I mean I have used it. One is you call on them, right? And you don't call on them because you are picking on them, but you call everybody and you call on them. Other technique is you expect everybody to participate, and that is really in the brainstorming session that we do, right? But if you're not doing brainstorming, but you are explaining some topic, you purposely go and ask questions to these shy students. The third way is you do one-on-one, before or after. And and ask them if they had such a valuable input. In fact, encourage them if they had input and say, why wouldn't you speak it in public? And then the next time, essentially give a credit to this person. Oh, so-and-so was telling me this is the situation and what a great idea. That would encourage them to participate. Anyone else has other techniques that they have used?
We have a question from Professor Kudre, Mahesh Kumar Kudre, and he says, how can mathematics thought process be accelerated in students as the mathematics gene is exiting in every human?
Yeah, again, I go back to my probing questions, okay? And I hope we are talking about, not talking about engineering students solving partial differential equations, because the questions I would ask are different than the ones I would ask for my children. So I'm giving you some example here. About 25, 30 years ago, I got two children, 3 years apart. And every time we would come from a long ride, uh, they would ask me, one of them would just rewind and would say, hey, how far we have to go? So rather than answering her straightforward, I would say, hey, we just passed mile marker 75, and we have to take exit on mile marker 150. How far would it be? Now she would struggle doing subtraction, but she would come up with a number. And then she would whine again, but how long will it take? Now we're talking about division. So I would ask my son, who is older than her, and say, hey, we are driving at 70 miles an hour. How long will it take? So he would start calculating it. I said, don't do exact calculation, 75 divided by 70. Just give an approximate. We say, oh yeah, it would take us 1 more hour. So I didn't give them the answer. What I found, what I thought it through is that what capabilities they have, what skills they have, and what information I can give them so that they can find the answer. And whether it is a mathematics, or whether it's a physics, whether it is a elementary school mathematics, that's what we did just now, or if it is an engineering problem solving, like partial differential equations, I would do the same thing. If a student is asking and trying to solve a problem in the space-time domain, same question, what does he know and what information I can give him, and they're going to ask questions. Is it a boundary value problem? Is it the initial value problem? What kind of boundaries values do you know? Have you separated time element from the space element? Have you moved from partial differential equations to a individual element? So those are the questions I would ask so that they find answers themselves. Knowing, I got to know what their skills and capability levels are. And as a teacher, I generally know that. Does it make sense, or did I give you a very elementary example?
No, I think it was very clear, sir. That did make sense, of course. And yeah, he's also happy. He's written, thank you very much for this answer. And I think that's all. With all our questions have been answered. So over to you, Geeta ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. And it was a great pleasure to visit this group.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So let me propose the formal vote of thanks. On behalf of Mahatma Education Society's Pillai College of Education and Research, New Panvel, and all the participants of this webinar, it is my proud privilege and honor to extend my deepest gratitude to respected Dr. Chetan Date for his thought-provoking deliberation on the topic critical thinking, tools and techniques for teacher. Sir's vast and in-depth knowledge on the concept did complete justice to it and brought better understanding on the topic. Being a teacher by passion, he made the session very thought-provoking. The session was enthralling, embedded with related videos for a better understanding and beautiful examples on each tool. We could relate to the examples, sir. They were linked to our daily life and also something we do every day. Man is, after all, a thinking being, and everything around us is in motion due to thinking. Sir has played his part well, sown the seeds in our mind. Now it is our work to bring the knowledge to use in our teaching. So we are going to take little time to process the information and also going to take a little more time to go deeper into the application of these tools in our teaching. So during the question answer session, it was clearly visible how the thoughts were set in motion. Thank you so much, sir, for putting in so much efforts in us. Thanks a lot, sir. My deepest gratitude to our founders, Dr. Vasudevan Pillai, sir, and Dr. Daphne Pillai, ma'am, for all the opportunities we get to hone our personal skills, as well as professional skills. Thank you, Priyam, sir, and Pranav, sir, for supporting our ventures. A big thank you to the strongest pillar of our institution, Dr. Sally Enos, for her support and spirit. I will fail in my duty if I do not appreciate the efforts put in by Sukhdeep Singh sir and Nishant for their technical support in hosting the webinar live. Thank you, guys. There would not have been a session without the participants. So I thank each one of you from the bottom of my heart for the support and appreciation we get from your participation. Last but not the least, it always fills me with emotion as I simply cannot thank enough the teachers for their constant support. Thank you all for being there for one another. And I would like to repeat, our strength lies in our team. Thank you so much, everyone. We now conclude the session. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Geeta. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir.